In the stale afternoon glow that bled through his attic window, Silas Kemp discovered the only heirloom his late grandmother had failed to mention. The trunk was buried under quilts that smelled of mothballs and violets, its brass latch rusted shut. A quick twist with a screwdriver snapped the brittle metal, and the lid sighed open, as though grateful for release. Inside, cushioned by yellowed newspaper, sat a portable Underwood typewriter, as black and glossy as patent leather shoes. Silas had sold 2 novels in 10 years, and though the checks were modest, he still thought of himself as a novelist rather than the community college tutor who paid the rent. He believed fiercely, piously, that the proper tool might unlock the language that eluded him. The Underwood seemed a relic designed for precisely that purpose. A note lay folded beneath it, penned in grandmotherly cursive, "For those who have something worth saying, and the nerve to pay in kind." He brought the machine downstairs, set it on the small desk beside his laptop, and inhaled the faint perfume of oil and metal. Keys clicked with a crispness he had never heard in a modern keyboard. He rolled in a sheet of paper, cranked twice, and began to type the opening sentence of the novel he'd been outlining for months. The thaw came late that year. He paused. Where the carbon ribbon should have stamped neat letters, the characters glimmered white, three-dimensional and unmistakably biological. Tiny incisors, molars, and crooked canines, pressed up through the paper as if it were gum tissue. Each word was a little jawline. Silas recoiled, knocking his chair into the wall. The paper rippled. A faint chattering filled the room, the clack of hundreds of small teeth clicking experimentally, tasting air. The letters glistened with saliva. Silas swallowed hard. After a stunned moment, curiosity trumped disgust. He leaned in, touched a single capital T. It wiggled, rooted like a loose baby tooth but anchored deep. A thin prick of pain shot up his fingertip where the enamel edge sliced him. A bead of blood welled. Instantly the whole sentence bent toward the drop, jaws snapping. He yanked his hand back. The teeth clamped shut, leaving a minuscule red crescent on the paper. He ripped the sheet from the platen, crumpled it, and hurled it into the wastebasket. The ball convulsed once, then lay still. Silence returned, broken only by Silas's shuddering breath. Any sensible person would have boxed the typewriter and hurled it off the nearest bridge. Silas stood, trembling, imagining the headline, "Local found, gnawed by own manuscript." Yet an opposite impulse crawled up his spine, one that all writers know too well. The sentence, malformed and carnivorous, was nonetheless alive. It had energy. It startled. What reader could look away from words that literally bit? Hands shaking, he loaded a fresh sheet. This time he typed more slowly, listening. "I am born of ink and emptiness." The teeth sprouted again, each word forming a sharper, whiter bite, but they stayed flat on the page, waiting. No blood this time, he dared continue. "I hunger for story, feed me." When he reached the margin, he pulled the page free, careful to grip only the corners. The teeth stayed still. He held the sheet at eye level, mesmerized. On impulse he whispered, "Good." The teeth clicked in applause. That night he lay awake, palms throbbing with phantom nips. He rose at 3:00 a.m., padded to the desk, and typed 12 more pages. By dawn, his garbage can bulged with discarded drafts that writhed softly to themselves. The keepers, the sentences that felt right, lay stacked like a deck of carnivorous cards. Occasionally one sheet nibbled another, testing boundaries, but a sharp tap of Silas' pencil and a firm "no" made them subside. For the first time in years, prose poured from him. The typewriter demanded precision. Lazy adjectives earned reprimanding nips when he reread them. Clichés drew blood. But when he nailed a scene, the page merely purred, its rows of teeth closing in satisfaction, like a cat needing a pillow. Pain was a fair price, he decided, for greatness. 3 weeks later, he had 200 pages, a complete first draft. He avoided reading them in sequence. Instinct told him the manuscript preferred novelty. Instead, he mailed 3 sample chapters to his agent, Marlene. without a reread. He wrapped each in wax paper, then bubble wrap, then sealed the envelope with reinforced tape. To be safe, he slid a note under the flap. Handwritten. When Marlene called, her voice shook. "Silas, what the hell did you send me?" He feigned innocence. "The new novel." "It arrived this morning." My assistant opened the envelope. "She's at urgent care," said the pages bitter. His throat tightened. "A paper cut?" "A hunk of flesh," Marlene hissed. "The nurse thought it was a dog bite." "Is she okay?" "She'll live, but she's filing a report." "Silas, did you rig some kind of joke?" He pictured the assistant reaching in, a neat manicured hand meeting rows of eager molars. "It's experimental," he managed. "Experimental doesn't cover liability. The pages are gone, Silas. They chewed their way through the FedEx box and disappeared. Where? Nobody knows. Security combed every floor. We found bloody confetti in the stairwell. That's it." A flutter of pride mingled with horror. His words were out in the world, literally alive. "Listen," Marlene continued, voice softer. "If this is some viral stunt, we need to control the narrative. Send me a PDF." "You won't get the effect with a PDF," he said before he could stop himself. Her silence stretched. Finally, "You've got 7 days to deliver something publishable and safe, or we're done." She hung up. Silas paced. The typewriter sat smug and silent, jaws closed. He thought of the missing pages roaming New York, gnawing ankles on subway platforms. The story wanted more readers, more mouths upon which to feed. He spent the next 2 days revising. Each improvement he made, each weak verb replaced by a stronger one, calmed the pages. They lay flatter, teeth folding under like petals at dusk. By the time he finished the second draft, the manuscript radiated a serene menace, like a well-fed predator sunning itself. He needed testimony, praise from someone immune to lawsuits. His downstairs neighbor, Ruth, was a retired dentist who collected antique medical oddities. She won the neighborhood chili cook-off every year and adored Silas's first novel. She would appreciate the novelty of dental typography. He wrapped a single chapter in cheesecloth and knocked on her door. Ruth answered in gardening gloves, dirt smudging her cheek. "Silas, you look peaky. Everything all right?" "I wrote something new," he said. "Could use your opinion." Her eyes lit up. She ushered him in, poured chamomile, and settled into a rocking chair. Silas placed the chapter on her lap, cloth folded back like hospital sheets. "This looks toothy," she murmured, leaning closer. The minute her shadow fell over the words, the teeth twitched, tasting the air. Ruth laughed nervously. "Is this embossed? Lord, you authors and your gimmicks." She began to read aloud. With each sentence, the paper's teeth brushed her skin, leaving crescent moon impressions, but never breaking flesh. She paused only once to sip tea, eyes shining. "Silas," she whispered after the final line. "This is extraordinary. Horrifying, yes. A real nightmare, but phrased with such precision. The prose seems to bite." She chuckled at her pun, unaware of the literal danger inches from her wrist. "Does it hurt?" Silas asked. "Tickles, like kittens mouthing your fingers." She stroked the margin. The teeth nuzzled. "They know I'm a dentist's daughter," she joked. Relief flooded him. Maybe the pages only mauled those who approached without respect, like Marlene's assistant tearing open a parcel with a letter opener. Ruth had read with reverence, and the story rewarded her. "May I keep this?" she asked. Silas hesitated. His gut said the manuscript belonged to him alone, yet he needed a sympathetic reader in his corner. "Of course," he said. "Treat it kindly." That night, he dreamed of teeth, oceans of them, churning like whitecaps. He woke to a scream, Ruth's scream. He bolted downstairs, pajama pants flapping. Ruth's door was ajar. He rushed inside, heart hammering, and found her kitchen floor patterned with blood. Ruth crouched on the counter, clutching a broom as though fending off rats. The chapter he'd given her had shredded itself into dozens of strips. each now a ribbon of snapping incisors that slithered across the linoleum, searching. It was quiet, she sobbed. I tried reading it again with breakfast, but I laughed at a line I'd mispronounced, and it... Her voice broke. A strip lunged, latched onto her ankle, and shook like a terrier. Ruth shrieked. Silas grabbed the nearest weapon, her cast-iron skillet swung, and flattened the strip. Teeth shattered, scattering enamel across the tiles. The remaining ribbons hissed. Silas stomped another, then another, until silence fell. Ruth slid off the counter, weeping softly. "Why do your words want to eat me?" "They're not supposed to," he whispered, throat raw. "They're hungry for attention. Maybe laughter counts as disrespect?" She glared. "Get them out of my house." Silas gathered the twitching pieces with tongs, shoved them into a stockpot, and carried it upstairs. He dumped the fragments onto his desk. The typewriter sat gleaming, innocent. Panic edged out creativity. If his novel was dangerous, who would publish it? Who would dare read it aloud at a bookshop signing? Yet he sensed that suppressing it would be worse. Words caged too long turn feral. He had seen this in lesser form with drafts left in drawers. They soured, their metaphors rotted. His current draft was already chewing its way into the world. Better to give it structure, a feeding schedule. He devised rules. 1. Only he would handle the pages until final edits were complete. 2. Anyone allowed to read must wear thick leather gloves and approach with the solemnity of a priest. 3. If a page bit, it must be disciplined teeth, sanded down with an emery board, the offending sentence rewritten. He spent days sanding and rewriting. Blood speckled the carpet where sharp clauses nicked him, but the story improved. Hungry paragraphs slimmed into taut, muscular lines. Scenes grew lean, each bite purposeful. When he felt the novel was perfect, he printed a digital typeset copy on standard paper, hoping the translation would pacify it. The letters remained flat, toothless. Encouraged, he mailed this version to Marlene. The same night, he locked the typewriter draft, the original toothed manuscript, in a cedar chest with a child-proof latch, then added a bicycle chain and padlock for good measure. Marlene called after 48 hours. "Silas, I love it. The voice is potent, dark. I couldn't tear my eyes away." He exhaled. "But," she added, "I keep feeling like something's missing. The text on my screen is powerful, sure, but I sense a deeper current you held back, like I'm reading the ghost of a better book." Silas stared at the locked chest. Inside, the pages rustled, sensing attention. "That version is volatile. Publishers crave volatile. The industry's starving for a sensation. My volatility draws blood, Marlene. So did Palahniuk once. So did Nabokov, in a different sense. Name your advance. 6 figures if we hype this right." He imagined national tours, tepid coffee in hotel lobbies, signing flat, harmless pages while the real manuscript sulked at home. Fraud. "I'll think about it," he said. That evening Ruth visited, ankle-bandaged, brandishing a wicker basket. "Peace offering," she said. Inside lay molar-shaped cookies dusted with powdered sugar. "I still believe in your talent, but you need help." They drank tea. Ruth proposed contacting Dr. Celine Warwick, a folklorist at the university who specialized in cursed objects. "Not an exorcist," Ruth emphasized. "A scholar. She'll treat your work with respect." Silas agreed out of desperation. Dr. Warwick arrived the next morning, wearing horn-rimmed glasses and wielding a stethoscope. She circled the cedar chest, listening to the manuscript's faint chewing. "Marvelous," she murmured. "An oral text in the literal sense." "Can you neutralize it?" Silas asked. "Why would I? This is the purest expression of the oral tradition. Story as living mouth." She knelt, eyes shining. "May I interview it?" Silas's protective instinct flared. "Only if you promise not to provoke." Ruth handed Celine elbow-length falconer's gloves. The scholar pulled them on, undid the padlock, and lifted the lid. The pages quivered like newborn mice. She addressed them in a calm, sing-song cadence, praising their structure, noting echoes of Gothic romance and modern transgression. The pages seemed to preen, teeth flashing shyly. Then Celine asked, "What is it you hunger for?" Silas leaned in. The pages rustled. For the first time, a single word formed in human voice, no vocal cords, only the clattering of enamel against enamel. "Readers!" Celine trembled with excitement. "How many?" "All." Silas's stomach dropped. He pictured 7 billion mouths torn open for the delight of his prose. Celine grinned. "We can arrange broad distribution, translation rights, digital platforms." Silas slammed the lid. The pages screeched, a damp, ripping sound. "No," he said, "we'll feed you selectively or not at all." Ruth placed a hand on his arm. "Stories want to be told, Silas, but not all stories deserve the world." "What then?" he asked. Celine straightened. "Containment is possible. There's precedent. The Papu vow, written on bark that screamed. The Sibyl's leaves guarded by Apollo. The method is always the same. Sacrifice," Silas swallowed. "Of the author," Ruth gasped. Celine raised a placating palm. "Not necessarily your life, only a piece. Blood bound to paper in exchange of essence. You already gave drops inadvertently. But a conscious, wholehearted offering might sate the manuscript permanently and render it safe for readers." Silas pictured himself slicing a palm, letting pages lap his blood. Would they transform, teeth softening into letter, or simply grow stronger? Ruth surprised him by saying, "There's another way. Compost." Both turned. She elaborated. "In dentistry, when a tooth is beyond saving, we extract it, grind it, dispose of the shards in biohazard waste. Your pages are teeth. You can pulp them." Celine bristled. "Destroy such a marvel? Barbaric." "Safer than feeding it," Ruth countered. Silas felt tugged between midwives. One urged sacrifice for the sake of art's glory. The other offered mercy through obliteration. His pulse hammered. He realized no one had asked what he wanted. He wanted readers, the validation, the applause, the signing lines. But he did not want their flesh on his conscience. He also wanted peace, to sit at his desk without fear of being devoured by his own paragraphs. He unlocked the chest again. The pages rustled expectantly. He lifted the top sheet. It quivered like a hound sensing its master's scent. "I will give you me," he whispered. "But you give me yourself, on my terms." He pricked his finger with the letter opener, squeezed a thick drop onto the title. The teeth nipped at it, but he held the page high and, with his uninjured hand, fed the blood into the platen of his laser printer's paper tray. Silas then pressed copy on the laptop, duplicating the first page digitally. As the machine whirred, he let more blood smear the scanner glass. The printer spat out a replica, letters crisp. No teeth. The original page's teeth shuddered. They retracted slightly, as if uncertain. Silas repeated the ritual. Blood on page, digital duplication. By the 7th copy, the teeth had shrunk to nubs. The page lay flat. Celine watched, entranced. "You're translating your life into ink," she breathed. Ruth dabbed Silas's bleeding finger with gauze. "He's diluting the curse," she corrected. One by one, Silas copied every page, marking each original with a thumbprint of blood before scanning. The process lasted until dawn. When he reached the final sheet, the manuscript rested limp and toothless, letters black and harmless. The copies, gleaming stacks fresh from the printer, were likewise mundane. The typewriter itself sat quiet, perhaps offended, perhaps relieved. Silas gathered the original pages, now ordinary paper mottled with rusty fingerprints, and sealed them in a folder labeled Archive. The copies he paginated, formatted, and saved as a PDF. He emailed Marlene. Celine lingered, disappointed. "You tamed it," she said. "Marvel becomes artifact." Bartefact is safer, he replied. Ruth hugged him. You gave blood to save readers' skin. That's authorship. A month later, the novel, a psychological thriller titled Soft White, triggered bidding wars. Reviewers praised its visceral prose, its uncanny sense of threat, though nobody could pinpoint why every chapter gnawed at dreams. Silas toured the country, signing thousands of harmless pages. No reader bled. Sometimes, late at night, he opened the cedar chest and stared at the obsolete underwood. He never touched it again, but neither did he destroy it. A writer needs the memory of teeth to stay honest. Yet on calm evenings, if the wind blew just so, he could swear he heard a faint clacking from the attic where the typewriter now lived, an echo of keys, or perhaps the memory of Jaws, reminding him that every word is still somewhere hungry.